this month's episode of Black Girl Talks Pop. In K-pop, we all know that hope is the thief of joy. This is why I have beef with most visuals of most groups. The only appropriate response to fear is flight. Colorism makes me sick, and until it sickens you, until it breaks your heart, you will be continuing to be part of the problem. Hey y'all, I'm Ada Grace. Welcome to my podcast, Black Girl Talks Pop, where I talk about pop culture and all the hits and misses in between. I am so honored to be a special guest of the KPSN Podcast Fest for 2021, but I have to admit that I was racking my brain trying to come up with the topic. Fortunately, the K-pop music chart stepped in to help. But God, rich in mercy, because of the increased popularity of their comeback journey to Atlantis, I decided to talk about the K-pop girl group Laboum. In this episode, I'll discuss the reality show Laboum Project, review their mini album Love Sign, and rant about some enemies of progress. This is only a sneak peek of the full episode, which will be live on Patreon right after my segment. The full audio episodes of Season 1 of my podcast are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and more. Starting with Season 2, I began to only post at least 20 minutes of each episode on public platforms, but you'll be able to see and hear the entire video podcast on Patreon. If you'd like to be a pop star, which is what I call my patrons, thanks for your support. On Patreon, you'll get access to a monthly video podcast for just $5 a month. There's already 2 episodes there for you to check out. On Patreon, I'll discuss Laboum's album, Two of Us, as Sooyoung would sing, and some enemies of progress. Now, what's an enemy of progress? I'm first-generation Nigerian American. In Nigerian culture, an enemy of progress is anyone that tries to stop your divine destiny. I want to add the disclaimer here that I don't want y'all going around calling people enemies of progress. Don't be a weirdo. Anyway, on this podcast, an enemy of progress is any behavior that's a stumbling block on the path to Black liberation. And unfortunately, there's a lot of those, even in K-pop. Nevertheless, I'm so glad to have found fellow Black K-pop fans, and they've been the main reason why K-pop is one of my favorite genres of music today. Speaking of K-pop, it's time to talk about Laboum. Let's get into it. Before we get into the rest of the episode, I wanted to share a message on behalf of the KPSN Podcast Fest for 2021. The National Alliance on Mental Illness states that mental health conditions do not discriminate based on race, color, gender, or identity. Anyone can experience the challenges of mental illness regardless of their background. However, background and identity can make access to mental health treatment much more difficult. This is why Black Girl Talks Pop is proud to join KPSN Podcast Fest 2021 in raising funds for Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. This annual event, held each July, is our way of giving back to the community and reminding you that you are not alone. Help us reach this year's donation goal at solo.to/KPSNfund. That's solo.to/KPSNFUN. Now we shall make a stop for K-pop. At this time, I'll discuss what's bringing me up and what's bringing me down in my favorite music genre. This is based on my own opinion, so any crime is alleged and your feelings about your faves may not be protected. Shall we? Let's begin. Before I talk about the reality show, I'd like to do what every K-pop fan does when discussing a K-pop group. I'll discuss my history with the group, confirm whether I'm a fan, stan, or something in between, and finally announce my bias and bias wrecker. Let's begin. I discovered Laboum in 2017 with their amazing comeback Kui Kui. It was a hit the moment I pressed play. Everything about this era was perfect. This was my favorite song of 2017, and I ended up buying the mini album last year and making the song my ringtone. When the alarm plays, I usually listen to the song at least twice. That's how much I love it. As I mentioned on my Twitter, I thought the song deserved its first win for the group, even though the win may not have been obtained by the most honest means allegedly. Now, it usually takes 3 of a group's singles or comebacks for me to decide if I like the group's music, but I was pretty much a fan with Hui Hui and Shooting Love, so you could say that I'm latte adjacent, latte presenting, but not an actual latte. Wait, pump the brakes. You're saying Ada. You're doing a whole episode about Laboum and you're not a stan. What's your damage? You might ask if you're a character in an 80s teen movie. Well, at the time, I just couldn't get into the group. You know how sometimes you have to be in the right mood for a lot of K-pop content? I don't think I was in the right headspace for it. Now, as someone who has been tracking the industry for a while, I can't really stand any group anymore. I think I've seen too much, but I still think that there's great music to discover, and who knows, I could be introducing you to your ultimate group. So stay with me. We'll get there. I always liked Laboum's music. I will always like Laboum's music, which is a good sign, because to be honest with you, there are some groups that are great on variety shows but don't have a discography that grabs me. So I'd rather have a less interesting group with good music than vice versa. Now, I can think of a few groups off the top of my head that fit in the latter category, and if you're willing to share, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. I just might agree with you. So let's talk about it in the comments, okay? Anyway, I've always known who the members were, so I'll give a quick introduction to the members based on my perception of them, and you can check out a helpful guide which I've linked in the description below. I listed the members in the age order that I could guess, and I was almost right. I ended up mixing up Zian and Sooyoung. So I am developing the completely useless skill of telling the age order of girl group members. Yay me! Anyway, let's start with Yoojung. She's the oldest and the leader, and she really lives up to the role as the mother of the group, especially for Sungmin the maknae. She's one of the main vocals. I would say that she's the Bomi to Sooyoung's Eunji, if that makes any sense. Sooyoung is the voice of the group. I think about her high note in Hui Hui once a day, and I feel my skin clearing and my bills being paid by someone else. That's how much faith I have in her talent. She leads in high notes and in screaming loudly because she's a scaredy cat, along with Zian. Zian is Solbin's bestie and partner in variety. She's a visual, and she's just a cute, fluffy marshmallow, frankly. I would also say that she's the meme queen of the group, because she has the best reactions. You can always look at Zian's face to just get a laugh anytime they're in an unpredictable situation or it's just a Monday or whatever. Her face is always doing something. I love it. Then there's Haein, my bias. She's the member that appears to have wanted a sexy concept since day one. There's always one of those in a girl group, and I usually end up standing them, so her being my bias is just no surprise. It's like saying water is clear. Then there's Yeolhee. She's my bias wrecker because she's a triple threat. She sings, she raps, and she looks like that. I don't argue with facts, okay? She's close to Haein, and unfortunately, due to the obvious bias in editing, I didn't get to see my faves hang out much. Unfortunately, I should say that she was my bias wrecker as she got pregnant and engaged and left the group. So probably maybe Sooyoung's my new bias wrecker. Anyway, I didn't think Yeolhee needed to leave the group. I think the group was stronger as 6, and I feel that if the K-pop industry allowed members to grow up and have lives, more groups could use the Suju model of just coming back with whoever is available and doesn't have a scandal. And even in Suju, we all know that the married member isn't coming back anytime soon, but that is a separate discussion at another time. But not my fandom, not my group. I'm just gonna move on. Let's move on. There's no time. Anyway, she's still on TV as a star of a reality show called My House Husband, where she just vibes with her husband and their kids. And I love that for her. Less work, hopefully more pay. We love to see it. Lastly, but never the least, there's Solbin the maknae, and my favorite is the member that I like more as I observe her with other members. It was interesting seeing the different dynamic that she had with the others, particularly Zian and Yoojung. She's the face of the group and the mood maker as well, and it was nice seeing her funny side on the show. Speaking of which, it's time for my review of the show. In K-pop, we all know that hope is the thief of joy. I made the mistake of having expectations about this reality show, I saw that the show came out with the promotions of Shooting Love, and I made a grave mistake. I started coming up with creative ideas, and we all know that only leads to disappointment. I couldn't help it. I am a dreamer. I was picturing the K-pop version of the Disney Channel games, and that the girls would be split into the same teams of 3 that they were in the music video, and they do several competitions, maybe best of 3, for like a group prize, like maybe an actual vacation, or food that's not from a convenience store, and then the winning team could compete against each other for like a winning prize, like ending fairy or more screen time in the music video. That's what I wanted, but of course that's not really what I got. I was first confused by the intro. I thought this would be a show because, I can adjust, I can pivot. I thought that this would be a show where we get to know the girls a little more and hear them share their experiences being idols, just based on the intro alone. Each girl would have an opportunity to shed light on a different part of idol life, whether it's the dating ban or quote-unquote dieting or haters on the internet or whatever. Or maybe it'd be like Channel SNSD, which the intro also reminded me of, and each member would have a chance to talk about their individual interest. I wasn't sure. I was just grasping at straws, trying to figure out exactly what this reality show would be. Well, we didn't get any of those things either. It was actually several reality tropes in one, and the show never found its footing long enough for me to decide whether I was enjoying what I saw or not. The reality show can frankly be summed up in the first episode, or at least my feelings about it. In episode 1, I kind of get my wish, but it was just a cooking competition in their dorm. The girls were split into teams of 2 and told to cook with secret ingredients in the style of Chopped. So let's talk about the teams that I thought were most interesting. I should have known not to take this show seriously when they gave each team different secret ingredients. That's not fair. And the team with the easiest ingredient didn't even win. So Yulhee and Yoojung got to cook with an ostrich egg, which is basically just a large egg. Like the girls, I would also think that all eggs taste the same. I didn't think they deserved to win because they weren't creative. Really, a fried egg dish in whatever Yulhee made. I loved how the editors kind of threw shade at Yulhee's dish by calling it an unidentified egg dish, but it really did look like warm yolk. Maybe she was going for flan. Anyway, it was a flop. Then we get to visual line, ZN and Sungmin, who had to deal with live mealworms. This was the first moment I knew of many moments, but this was the first moment in the show where I knew that I couldn't make it in a K-pop girl group. Okay? I knew this team couldn't cook and shared one brain cell, so it was incredibly entertaining watching them figure out what to make. They ended up going for mealworm pizza, which looked more like a panini, and they won. How? This is when I knew that any competition in the show would be rigged. Okay, Sooyoung and Haein, my girls, made octopus skewers. Yoojung made a fried rice dish, but both of these meals, all of these meals sound reasonable and even delicious. You're telling me these meals lost to a mealworm panini? Well, it's no surprise considering the judges were a bunch of cameramen, of course rooting for the visuals. And this is why I have beef with most visuals of most groups. The visual is never the person that I think is the most attractive because I don't subscribe to Korean beauty standards. And honestly, through the power of genes in medicine, all of these people are pretty. So the title visual just causes division and confusion. And then they're rarely the best singer or dancer, so they're literally standing in the middle taking up screen time while someone else is singing, or someone else could be dancing in the middle. Now I always made room for my girl Sooyoung in AOA because visuals are rarely darker members, but when FNC decided to give her more lines and more screen time, that really grinded my gears, because where's the energy for Hyejung? An equally beautiful darker member, a perfectly fine vocalist, and the funniest member of the group. Where's the extra screen time? Where is it, FNC? Anyway, I learned that I'm actually not mad at the members themselves. I'm frustrated with the men in power that continue to tell these people that they're prettier than the other members of the group and should therefore have more opportunities or be able to win cooking competitions when they definitely cannot cook. I don't care if a mealworm does taste like fried shrimp. The moment I realize I'm eating a worm, spit it out, and you're losing points. Another disappointing part of the show is that it did not give me the content I actually wanted to see. While each team was cooking, the other members were in a room playing a card game. And I really wanted to see the card game, okay? I felt it was a missed opportunity to have 2 competitions in one episode and give us time to get to know the girls. We rarely saw the group members as 6 talking amongst themselves, and a card game would have been easy content. Now, I'm no longer a Rebel F because what that member did just never settled in my spirit, but I did make a U-turn for Joy because I don't have a problem with her. But I have to admit that Red Velvet has the best reality show in all of K-pop. SM just lets the girls go to some country and do nothing but walk around and play games in their hotel room with each other or against the staff, and there wasn't an episode that I didn't enjoy. And I believe that it was twice that show these companies that K-pop groups are most interesting when they're hanging out with each other. Just get a camera crew and watch what happens live. A lot of K-pop companies got the memo except for Laboum's. I don't really care what these women do. I want to know who they are as individuals and who they are to each other, and the format of the show only gave me crumbs. Between each team's cooking, we got short asides and vlogs, one of which showed Yeolhee being pranked by a staff member who hid a soju bottle in Yeolhee's purse, then asked the members to do a what's in my bag so Yeolhee would have to reveal this. I'm sure if this was not a prank, Yeolhee would have been subjected to weeks of reflection time and possibly been kicked out of the group. So I didn't think it was funny. And I don't think any of the quote-unquote pranks they pull in these reality shows are actually funny, but I'll talk about that later. Anyway, there's, episodes that follow which are a series of courage tests, and if you're looking for a through line to this show, you're never gonna get it. It was fine. I enjoyed it, but I hate change. I'm famously risk averse. So I just wanted consistency. I wanted to follow the girls through one journey and get to know them within that journey. But if you're looking for a good watch and way to get to know the members, I always recommend a reality show. So maybe you'll check it out and come up with a different conclusion. I give it a 6 out of 10. And that's not all I have to say about the reality show. There were a couple of things I could have completely lived without, so let's dive into some enemies of progress. Let's talk about these enemies of progress that block the path towards Black liberation. Trigger warning, I'll be discussing colorism. Get ready, 'cause here I go. ZN was an enemy of progress at the end of episode 2 of the Laboum Project, Laboum's reality show. I had just decided that I was enjoying the show, and she ended up ruining the episode with her colorism. Colorism is a form of racism that has perpetuated the false narrative that skin that is lighter or closer to whiteness and more distant from blackness is superior. It falsely asserts that people with lighter skin are more attractive and competent and have higher moral standards. I try to actively avoid the reality that colorism in K-pop is very real and pervasive, but unfortunately, these idols are obsessed with lightening their skin, even if they're already really white. According to the translation, ZN ended her nighttime skincare routine by telling her skin to become nice and white. I'm wondering exactly what color she thinks she's supposed to be, and if human beings even come in that shade. Like, people are not supposed to be the color of paper. When you read in literature that someone has turned ghost white, it's because the person saw that their ex-husband didn't die in the accident, or they have a long-lost twin. It's not good if you don't look like blood is flowing through your body. It's weird. Then we have to talk about the fact that this is even on my screen. The editors of the show didn't edit this part out because they didn't think that this foolishness is wrong. Additionally, where's the translator's note denouncing colorism? They left in notes for the fun stuff. What about when someone says something harmful that causes people around the world to put toxins in their bodies so that they can get a job, they can find love, they can reach their dreams, or they can be free from the trauma of being ridiculed, mistreated, abused everywhere, even in their own homes? Back to K-pop. Colorism, like any form of racism, hurts everyone. First of all, colorism is making these idols look silly on stage. I'm sorry, you want to have white skin so badly, your makeup artist wants you to have white skin so badly, but none of y'all could remember to blend? And even then, so your face and neck are white as snow. Congrats, you've attained a standard rooted in white supremacy. What about the rest of you? It's weird, you don't look your best, just color match for once. Secondly, colorism justifies the abuse of black and brown people with darker skin. If CN is telling herself to be white, I can only imagine what her and the other girls are saying to Solbin and Haein and what those women are saying to each other. One of the most unfortunate scenes in any reality show I've watched was in SNSD Hello Baby, where Sooyoung calls Yuri dirty because she's dark for at least 2 minutes straight, and Yuri's just laughing like it's a joke. Mind you, these are the darkest members of the group who have been recognized for being some of the prettiest members of the group, as they are in their darker skin, and they're still participating in colorism for millions of young Koreans to see, many of which might be girls who look just like them and look up to them. Then, 6 years later, when they come back with Holiday, they're on Knowing Bros, and they tell each other that the other person has gotten darker recently, as if being dark is an insult. It's a shame that they both seem to have self-hatred even after all these years and all their success. And it's even worse if they don't have it, but still think that colorism is a joke, when I'm sure they've seen many talented men and women in Korea lose opportunities because of the false narrative that being lighter is better. This is why every time a darker member debuts in a group, I feel protective of them because they must be facing all kinds of comments and mistreatment from and by the company, their group members, or even the fans, and it's heartbreaking to me to see their skin tone fade away to meet an anti-black standard when it was their skin tone that added to their beauty and made them stand out in the first place. And even when they lighten their skin, their position in the group rarely changes because they dare to debut with their darker skin tone, so these prejudiced fans don't want to give them a chance. Also, they don't look better than they did before. Melanin, not an orange tan, melanin makes you look better. If you have privilege in this area, you need to start talking to your friends and family and or checking yourself, because the oppressed cannot and should not be taxed with fixing their oppression. I don't hear or see enough K-pop idols taking time to uplift the darker members of their groups, and it's probably because a lot of them are part of the problem. As for fans, y'all watch who you're attracted to in these groups and start asking why. Don't ignore darker idols, but don't fetishize them either. Not every darker idol should have to have a hip-hop or sexy concept to have a career. Darker idols should be able to be considered as classy and elegant, and they should be able to be considered as someone's ideal type that they can dream of dating and marrying one day. I also want to point out that colorism denies people opportunities to have a career, much less flourish in their chosen field. Yuri should not have had to lighten her skin several shades over time to have a starring role as a princess in a historical drama. That's ridiculous. It's easy to tweet about how colorism is harmful. I need everyone to let it sink into your hearts that colorism, it's hurtful. It's damaging. Colorism is hurting people's feelings. It's messing with people's minds. In certain parts of the world, it affects people's abilities to pay their bills, provide for their families, and build generational wealth. It should make you sick to the bottom of your stomach that anyone in the world would ever look in the mirror and hate their reflection or question their worth for any reason ever, but y'all aren't sick of it, and y'all aren't angry about it, and so the next generation is paying for it. We've seen this over and over again. But people in power continue to promote the same people with the same look and saying that it's just a preference with lyrics and jokes about how darker women are ugly and angry and bitter, or only showing lighter people in healthy relationships, and y'all continue to buy into it because it's just a song or a movie. As long as you're vibing, it doesn't matter that people are suffering. It's sick. Colorism makes me sick, and until it sickens you, until it breaks your heart, you will be continuing to be part of the problem. I encourage fans, especially non-black fans, because this is a conversation that black people have been having for years, to continue speaking out against the colorism displayed by their idols and stop including their racist jokes and statements in these fan-made compilations. If you're subbing a reality show or variety show appearance and your fave says something harmful, add a translator's note so your viewers, especially your Black viewers, can know that you find your fave's views to be abhorrent and you don't tolerate any form of racism. And this applies to homophobia, xenophobia, etc. But I really want to point out how non-Black K-pop fans can show their solidarity with Black fans in their subbed videos, not just in their Twitter and Instagram bios. As I mentioned before, colorism cannot be fixed by darker Black and brown people, so the rest of you need to stand up. And it starts with looking in your own hearts and then doing something about it, not just retweeting the oppressed. This is my music haul! I can't wait to share the music that's newish to me. The music that I've mentioned and purchased will be available in the Spotify playlist that you can find in my link tree in the description below. In this music haul, I'll review Laboum's mini album Love Sign. Due to time, I won't discuss every song here with you, but my full review will be on Patreon. After the intro to the mini album, which is fine, there's the amazing comeback Shooting Love. This song is a bop from the first popping sounds. What I've noticed about Shooting Love and Hui Hui is that Laboum's producers know how to grab you from the instrumental. It's like even the producers are actively campaigning to keep your attention, and I appreciate the effort. While the instrumental is great, it's really the talk singing that has you, twerking, booty popping along. Dreamcatcher's Puri does the same thing at that part that all the Black reactors with rhythm get into because the instrumental is just so engaging. There's so much going on, but the music matches certain vocal moments very well. The song overall is just a good listen. I can't wait to make this song another alarm on my phone. I am so excited to listen to it 3-4 times in a row before turning it off. Anyway, after you've bought this mini album, because I think you should, I highly recommend watching their live performances. You can really tell that the girls enjoyed the song while performing it. Laboum are just really good entertainers when they're suited for a song. They know how to embrace silliness without embarrassment, so it's fun to watch because you can tell they're having fun. They make you want to join in and do the point dance along with them. I also think you should watch the music video because it's a great time as well. This was just a perfect comeback for me. The girls are in 2 teams of 3 in the music video, and they're trying to take each other down for no reason at all. I guess it's just supposed to be another day at the dorm. I love it. When ZN jumps over the couch at the end of the song, it brings me so much joy. What makes it even funnier is that she looked so confident beforehand. I related to her because the only appropriate response to fear is flight. Let's move on to my final thoughts and overall rating of the mini album. So I really enjoyed it. This group is just so put together and professional, but they still have that rookie spirit or scrappiness that I find very attractive in a group. You can tell in this moment that they're gunning for success and they really want to make good music and give great performances. However, the problem with this mini album is while the songs are good, I don't immediately remember the songs that aren't Shooting Love, but I get with the program within the first 10 seconds of each song. They grab you when you first listen to them, but they just don't settle in your spirit, at least for me right now. I think with a few more listens, I could really love this entire body of work. With that said, this mini album gets 8 out of 10 dum-dum diggity dum-dum diggy dums. I'm about to close out my podcast with a prayer, but before I do so, please make sure to donate to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, at solo.to/KPSNFun. That's solo.to/KPSNFUN. The link is in the segment description below, and I've also included a link to NAMI's website if you'd like more information about the organization. Thanks for hanging out with me today. This was so awesome. Lord, I thank you for this day, and I thank you for this incredible opportunity to share my perspective and support an amazing cause. I pray that the Podcast Fest will provide food for thought, as well as a safe space for everyone involved to learn, laugh, and rest. I pray that you will give the volunteers wisdom and insight as they fulfill their duties, and I pray that we, the attendees, will work with them to make sure that the event runs smoothly and is an enjoyable time for everyone. May this event be a space that cultivates community and serve as a source of comfort and healing to those who have been feeling lost and alone. In Jesus' name I pray, Amen. It's over? Can this podcast go on forever? At the right price, I'll consider it. Check out previous episodes of the podcast. If you're on YouTube, you'll see some on the screen. And listen to the rest of this episode on Patreon for just $5 a month. I'll see you there.